I have this sister, and her name is Dawn. And my understanding is that, among other things, in Farsi, that the translation of dawn, the word dawn, is the name of a military intelligence satellite that Iran was able to get to space. Now, Iran is not actually able to get many satellites to space, especially using its own rocketry. But several years ago, it was able to get to space. A military intelligence satellite that had a name that translated to what would be my sister's name in English. And it's also the name of a newspaper from Pakistan, right? Did anybody see that picture of Daniel Pearl right before he got his head chopped off? A picture of him holding the newspaper like this. It was one of those things that they used to do. It used to be an old-timey thing when you got kidnapped and you were being held for ransom. You held up a newspaper, and the story and the headline authenticated that that was the day. At least if nothing else, it wasn't a day like after that day, right? Or day before, because the paper wouldn't have been available. They couldn't have kidnapped you some other day, right? You're able to reference it based on that, right? And my sister happens to have that name. And for a long time, they did this thing where they started giving my sister parts of my old life after they tried to give me a new life. I would talk to her on the phone every once in a while, and she would start talking about things she was experiencing that were similar to things I had experienced in the past when I was in Chicago, when I was politically active, before I became a church lady that then ended up getting sold to some narco cartel, right? Before they cut my brain in half and programmed one half to run cryptos for this narco, and then the other half was supposed to be rewired and programmed. Before that happened, I had a life. And then after I started talking to my sister again after a while, she started getting parts of my life and would talk to me about these things while I was being programmed to be different. I was actually being programmed to just do what I was told and be in an automaton kind of role. I didn't have any higher thinking. I wasn't socially active. I wasn't even really interested in politics. I was doing therapy. So they started swapping my life with my sister's. I believe it has to do with a survey the two of us had done. I remember I was in the kitchen of my apartment. It's when I worked as a newspaper editor. I had a library in the other room. I had about 2,000 books at the time. And I had a couple of roommates. I had an aquarium. I had my own room. And I was on the phone with my sister. We were doing a survey. I had heard about it. There was some department, and it was doing a survey on LGBT siblings. The idea was, if you're somebody that's LGBT and you are a sibling and you do a survey together to compare and contrast your experiences with your sexuality and your sexual identity. And I found a survey and I said, hey, Dawn, they're doing this for this project, this research project at this university. Would you, do the survey with me? And she said she would. And we did it on the phone. I read her the questions on the phone. She answered her questions. I believe, I'm not sure, but I think I let her know what my answers were. And we talked a little bit about how they were different. Some of the answers we had were different. Some of our experiences and memories of being young were different. I remember it was on lavender paper. The form was on a lavender paper. And I did the survey, and she did the survey, and then I turned it in. I didn't think much about it. I believe they used that survey to program profiles of me and my sister, and at some point they wanted to swap them out because my sister also had children, and I did not. And I think they wanted to use my sister and her children as part of a social engineering paradigm where they would then run proxy black ops on her and would traffic her and her children while she was supposed to be engineered into a certain kind of stereotype. That's absolutely what I understand they did. And so, what does this have to do with anything? Well, I am not ashamed of my sister or my nieces and nephews. Shoo! And I really hope that somebody didn't try to obligate my sister to the kinds of terms they seem to think that I am supposed to be obligated to in this little swap, right? Because as whatever ended up happening with my sister happened with my sister, and she did what she did, parts of her life got swapped to me and intentionally and seriously defamed, right? And in the course of this, we have a very significant problem with these misrepresentations of the facts that are allowed to perpetuate. And so, how does this have to do with the fact that I understand that somebody used my father specifically, and the fact that I was my father's daughter, to engage in a kind of political risk insurance for certain people in political office that ended up being disabused in manners that created national security threats for other countries and that have resulted in serious, horrible crimes. Right? I mean, is that not what this situation is if we have another situation with a war crimes consideration, especially in Libya? Is it an Iranian intelligence satellite responsible for this? Or is it a nonprofit organization connected to a religious institution engaged in acts of money laundering to finance international terrorists? Right, that's what you want to know. Because to be honest with you, those would be the jurisdictions you would need to have considered before they would allow for you to actually file or pursue a case in consideration of charges connected to what would be alleged. And if they determine that you're going through a military intelligence satellite, they're going to say it's intelligence or it's counterintelligence, and you're not going to be able to bring a case. They're just going to disappear you if you don't shut up and do what they say. But, if you can find somebody that is allowed to be the target in or the troubled asset in the larger investment paradigm, they might let you file a case for civil remuneration. And then the question becomes one of, well, will that remuneration be enough to compel that organization or that company that you're seeking restitution from into bankruptcy? And if so, then what will happen with the receivership or conservatorship that results from the bankruptcy? Because if that entity has been able to steal and harvest the lives of you and your people, then if you get money from them or you get a civil restitution in a monetary form, then what happens to the futures of your family? That's the lesson of Enron right now, right? Nobody ever charged Enron with war crimes. Nobody ever charged the federal government with war crimes with what they did with Enron, right? But we're dealing with 10, 20 years down the road, the fact that these swap deals will literally just take entire catalogs of people, including that were done in manners that were supposed to be about private health information or personal information for some sort of educational study purpose. And then they'll just sell it to other people to create all kinds of things with, including weapons. And then at some point, somebody's going to be involved in a national liberation struggle of one form or another. And the question is, how do they get the weapons? How did al-Nusra get all those weapons while it was still al-Nusra? This is a very specific question. It's like a riddle, right? If you figure that one out, you'll probably be able to put a whole bunch of other pieces together and they might give you a payoff. Does that sound horrible? It really is. I know. This is my bestia. Do you like it? Do you like these glasses instead of the ones I'm supposed to have? They're not those night vision goggles I was supposed to have, are they? I know. Do you like it? Do I look Libyan?